All right, well, I would like to introduce our next guest. We're going to actually have a really good conversation. I'm very excited about this. His name is George Galete. He's the chairman of EuroRSCG. The session is called Building a World, well, actually building a brand in a world of social chaos. I think we can all relate to this. The conversation is going to be great. Please help me welcome George. Come on up. All right. Well, first of all, you look very good. I am feeling underdressed next to you. Thanks for raising the bar. Now, you've gotten your hands dirty. Interactive marketing is nothing new. Digital is nothing new. But what's different today? What's different than the challenges that you face and how you're approaching these challenges?
I think what's significantly different, and I was around at the start of digital in agency land, and agencies can be very social and very digital, is that social media now creates an ecosystem that is absolutely measurable and that allows a brand marketer, allows a CMO to have a conversation that can be measured accurately in real time and affect sales. That's really different. The second thing that's different is what I call the age of many voices, which is it's not just a slow response out there. It's a response in real time that involves your competitors, your detractors, your ambassadors, your channel. It involves everybody, and that has made marketing real time.
In this one answer, you've sort of addressed all of the big fears of a lot of marketers today. I mean, you had metrics, you had sales, you had detractors. How do you approach that from a creative standpoint?
I miss shareholders.
Oh, sure, there you go. And shareholders. Wow, I mean, you just let everything out of the box. I mean, so actively you're thinking about it as you approach creative. I mean, so tell us a little bit about that.
I think it needs to really start with a deep understanding of the target. And there are many, many targets in the age of many voices. And so you've got to really think through what you're putting out there, and you've got to understand that what you're putting out there is going to be picked up by a lot of people. The opportunity to be misquoted is huge. The opportunity for your creative asset is huge. But you know, the CMO of IBM, John Iwata, said something which is the biggest risk, something very powerful. The biggest risk of social media is missing out. And you know, that's big from one of the biggest company in the world, one of the biggest companies in the world.
Missing out is actually what drives, I mean, just at a very human level, missing out is one of the biggest reasons why people have a tough time disconnecting from social. Right? I mean, just human beings are plugged in all the time because there is that sense of missing out. So what is it that you do to sort of fulfill, sort of bring some sort of value to the experience? I mean, are you thinking about that? Because I want to talk a little bit about your campaigns, because your work, which we will share with people in just a second, it's clear that you have a very different vision for how that very connected consumer needs to see and feel something.
I think that's an excellent point. And we work across all different industries, from high-end enterprise through to consumer, and everything in between, as well as pharma. So each client needs a different expression of how social works for them, and the start of that is to understand what their social business strategy is. In terms of not missing out, you know, we used to say digital at that digital was at the core of everything. That was how our network was founded. But really, the social experience is now at the core of everything. And we all understood word of mouth pretty well, but social word of mouth is now it. And so you need to consider in every campaign where social word of mouth is going to be impacting and how to at least be relevant in the story. If I could say one more thing, and then I'll shut up.
No.
You know, you have been a leader in much of the discussion, for which I thank you, because we use a lot of your work.
I'll send you the bill.
I'm almost through your book. By the way, I think I was one of the first to buy it online. Got it before the conference.
Wow, thank you.
The signal-to-noise ratio is one that is really important to be conscious of. So in a B2B environment, you don't want a lot of noise. You want great signal. With consumer work, with CPG, you want good volume of relevant noise. and you'll see some good volume
Right.
of relevant noise, and we can discuss some more signal to noise after that.
All right, well, actually, I want to come back to that. So I'm going to do a performance for you, so I hope you're all ready. Rehearse this quite a bit. I want you to name this brand. Can you tell him I'll text him back, please? Thank you. I am not always at conferences, but when I am, it is at Pivot. Stay social, my friends. What is that? Dos Equis. All right. Thank you. Because before the Old Spice guy, we had the most interesting man in the world. That's you.
Did.
So tell us about this.
So the most interesting man in the world, and I believe you've got someone from Heineken here this afternoon, the most interesting man in the world was absolutely driven from what we believe very strongly in, which is to do wonderful social work. You need to have a deep understanding of the consumer, what's really important to them, and what's really important to the target market of Dos Equis is a fear that they're actually not really that interesting. And so we wanted a sage advisor who could give them the real impact of how to be interesting. And most interestingly with him, he says, I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I drink Dos Equis. Should we play the video to see the impact?
He is the life of parties he has never attended. He bowls overhand.
How do you turn a most interesting campaign into a cultural phenomenon? We began by doing what we do best, reinforcing our interesting character. Next, we created a central hub for our rapidly growing fan base. Through digital engagement and live events, we forged an ongoing relationship between our hero and his fans. And finally, we shut up and let the public take over. 20,000 unprompted parodies were posted to Facebook alone. But can we truly call ourselves a pop culture phenomenon?
Dos Equis asked me to be the least interesting man in the world.
He is the most interesting hipster.
The most mysterious liberal in the world.
He is the most interesting man in the world of Warcraft.
Stay thirsty, my friend.
Look at that. You even get a round of applause for that.
I think it's really interesting in the sense of it's the most integrated campaign in the world, in my opinion. And it becomes that integrated because it's got an incredibly strong idea that is then executed, and I will say brilliantly, by us and others. The clients are very involved in this, through an ecosystem that allows the brand lovers to be really engaged. And somebody was talking about Facebook yesterday.
What's Facebook? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
It's a bit like LinkedIn, but for consumers. They have 1.6 million likes. They have 165,000 engaged conversations. It must be one of the highest ratios that there is. And we've had 20,000 people take the brand on and make the brand relevant to them. That's what social media can do for a CMO. That's power. And the case lift is incredible.
Well, actually, let's talk about lift, but I want to use that to lead into a different discussion, because you're not a one-hit wonder. I mean, how deep you think about this in terms of engagement and in terms of experience is clear in your work, right? How many people in the audience have seen the video about the Evian roller skating babies? Yeah, my kid can't do that, by the way. I tried, but that was huge. That was phenomenal. That people were engaged, people were talking, people were sharing about.
160 million people, Brian. And Guinness Book of Records, it was the top viral video for 2 years every week. It is the most successful viral that there's been. But your point yesterday about how do you make a viral video? No, you make a great video and then you seed it and you manage a community, an ecosystem to actually get it to go viral, but with meaning. We have 1 million people a week still, 2 years later, viewing that video.
I probably count for about half of all of those. But do you have something you want to share with us on that?
Yeah, there's a very short video, if we could play that now for the roller babies. It gives some results.
Let's observe the effect of the Roller Babies campaign on the Evian business. Tom, how do you manage your celebrity today?
It drives me crazy. Don't have time for myself. Being watched 94 million times. I'm in the Guinness Book next to the biggest potato ever. 17 million views of viral teasers, the making of, interviews. That's what I call a buzz, man.
Rapping to the beat, and me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. See, I am Wonder Mike, and I...
Can you believe this? According to a Pew survey, more than 1 out of 5 adult Americans still don't use the internet. What are they missing? Mark Phillips, bring on the skating babies.
A new commercial from Evian Water has gotten 10 million hits on YouTube.
Babies, babies everywhere. Why cute and cuddly is creating so much advertising buzz. It's a sign of the times.
Evian Water is quickly becoming a YouTube sensation, and it involves that age-old combination of babies, roller skates, and hip-hop. Take a look.
Well, that's Yellen Adzik there. Call it a high watermark in advertising. It's what happens when you combine CGI technology, rapper's delight by the Sugar Hill Gang, Evian Water, and the most rhythmic baby since Ally McBeal.
Les bébés d'Evian, c'est devenu une institution et c'est une affaire qui marche. Carton assuré, en tout cas, avant une diffusion en télé, ce sera dès dimanche prochain. Regarde.
If I could, don't mistake wonderful creative work for incredibly sound social strategy. This campaign started 6 months before the video was launched. It was seeded. There was a whole lot of excitement built up against communities that we knew that were extremely important for the brand, including the music community, because we've had a 10-year association. And so before the video launched, we had a large number of followers, and we were following up from a very rich history in youth. So great creative work, but incredibly deep social strategy around the business, driven to drive sales.
So we talk about relevance and resonance. These are two very important traits of any social, and actually any campaign, right? I mean, this whole room is probably on Twitter at this very moment. To have their attention,
Actually,
even for
they are.
to have their attention, right, is it's almost like a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you seem to tap into that, but I'd like to hear from a tactical standpoint. How do you have discussions around relevance and resonance? How does this factor into your work?
Ultimately, the consumer determines whether you have resonance. Your obligation is to be relevant. And, you know, all too often a CMO or an agency will think, bang, I'm going to push this out. And, you know, banging and pushing something out just doesn't work. You got to really understand that consumer, or the many consumers, because it is a multi-channel environment we live in. And from that, when you are relevant, you'll resonate and you'll be picked up in social search, in mobile search, in all the various ways that spectacular success for a brand comes about.
You talked a little bit about it. I'd like you to go deeper in the sense that in the Evian Roller Babies initiative, I've seen, I'm sure you've all seen it as well, we've probably worked with those companies where they come up with an amazing idea. They come up with an amazing video like that, and it just fails to go viral. And I have observed that it's mostly because they start with the creative, they start with the idea, and they push it into a channel without understanding even the sociology of the network. What makes something viral? And you talked about 6 months before that was introduced. Can you kind of peel the layers back a little bit about what that work looked like?
Yeah, so Evian, particularly in Europe, is about youth. And there's been a long association with the babies, with Evian and in music. We looked to find the ways that would resonate most strongly with our audience. And so we figured out we're going to go a music play. We figured out there was a 30-year anniversary of Rapper's Delight coming out. We thought we could stage a competition. Most people haven't heard this part of the story. To find out who would do the remix, Dan the Automator was given the remix opportunity. We said, hey, as Evian, we want to be associated with this. We'd started it all. And so we were seeding in that way and getting people highly involved, but we were also researching through to find out what our consumers wanted to see. There were movie trailers, there were all sorts of things happening beforehand, building a community. We had almost 500,000 people liking us on Facebook before we started.
Well, see, and I actually believe that you get out of social media, you get out of anything of what you put into it. And obviously, you put a lot into it. Now, we have about 4.5 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
Before we end, part of what is so significant about what's going on is the internal transformation of the companies that you work with. So it's not just about amazing creative and execution within new media channels. It's also about helping organizations sort of understand that it's not just about the consumers, it's also about employees.
Yeah.
And that the voice of the employee can also help effectively increase the brand and the relevance of the brand.
Yeah.
Can you share with us your experience with IBM?
Absolutely. I've had the privilege of working directly with them for a few years, and they are probably one of the most switched on internal marketing groups I've ever had the privilege of working with. Their CMO realized that they realized that the best way to experience the IBM brand is through the IBMer. And so their internal social collaboration is incredible. In fact, it's a large part of their business with Lotus Software. What their CMO challenged us to do was to help them take the 400,000 IBMers and put them outside the firewall through social, which implies a huge number of real things that have to change to be able to do that. You have to empower people to do it, but you also have to permission them to do it and give them ways that they can speak on behalf of the brand in meaningful ways.
When we talk about losing control of the brand outside,
yeah,
with consumers, I mean, a lot of companies are not ready to actually empower their employees. Everybody talks about it, but they actually did it, right? They built a network for 400,000 employees to collaborate. Being switched on is one thing, but how do you get a culture of an organization? How do you get a leadership organization to say that that's what we need to do? Because obviously every company is going to need to do this.
This is a company that's 100 years old. They had their centennial this year. In fact, they're celebrating it now. The CEO is visionary, Sam Parmesan, and he knew that through internal collaboration he could reinvigorate the whole business, and he's done that. They permission you, but they give guidelines. In fact, if you're interested, IBM social media guidelines are published on the web, and they've updated them, and those guidelines actually came through internal social collaboration. They believe that you should be able to speak and speak as yourself. There are some official spokesperson, but speak as yourself, and then, it's your opinion. But that they really encourage it. They empower it. They value their people's brands out there with theirs.
A business will come to you and say, I need you to make us the next Evian Roller Babies commercial. I'm sure you're in high demand.
And we have $1,500 to do it.
Really?
It's terrible.
Wow. But when we talk about, say, employee empowerment, very traditional companies come to mind, yet IBM came to you. What was their ask? What was their request?
It's interesting because they love the Evian roller babies, but they don't sell roller babies. They might sell CGI.
They're not really skating?
Yeah, so please, not a question about making babies bend over like that. They wanted an agency that was deep in understanding of brand and channel, but understood digital and social. And so they wanted a combination of getting marketing, but getting social and being able to do that in the B2B space. And that was basically the ask.
It's an amazing story. Can you, with the last seconds that we have, just tell us what you learned from that IBM experience?
The incredible power of vision if you're prepared to execute it. And this is a great time for us. This is the golden opportunity for marketers, for ad guys, and for clients. And if you've got a big idea, go for it. But put some test in it, put some accountability in it, understand how your various targets are reacting to it, and go. There isn't a better time for us.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, Keith, voice of God, I need your help. Can you introduce the next session? Because I'm going to walk off with this man. Help me thank him thank you for your work. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you very much.
Very much appreciated.